Roads to Liberty presents The Guardians of Liberty with your hosts, Nathan Barada and Zach Taylor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Guardians of Liberty podcast, hosted by myself, Nathan Barada, and as always, joined by my co-host, Zach Taylor. How you doing, Zach?
I'm exhausted this week. How are you?
You're exhausted every week, man.
Well,
you need to take some 5-hour energy or something.
We do this an hour before my bedtime on a Thursday. Like, the week has beaten me up. I'm starting to slide into my weekend because Friday is always a boring day for me. So I am ready for bed. I'm old. It takes a lot of energy to grow this kind of a beard. Look at this. This is majestic. Don't hate.
Absolutely. You're just being ridiculous now. All right, everybody. I just wanted to remind everybody that if you want to keep in touch with the Road to Liberty, podcast group, and specifically with us, the Guardians of Liberty, there's several ways to do that. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to get in on a more in-depth discussion, feel free to get on the Nebraska Libertarian Discussion Forum. This is a discussion forum I started a couple years ago for the state of Nebraska. It has around 600 followers on it, and we'll be posting discussions there for people to follow. And if we have a poll that we want you guys to get in on, if you guys want to see a special guest on this program, go ahead and get on that discussion forum. It'll ask you why you want to join. Tell them that you listen to the Roads to Liberty podcast and that you want to be in on the action and have a little interaction with it, a little back and forth. That's always fun to have.
Yep.
We want audience participation.
As my boy Philip DeFranco says, it's not just a show, it's a conversation.
It is a conversation, and we
Also,
want all of you, our loyal listeners,
you forgot our Minds account.
Oh, yes. We do have a Minds account as well. So if you're on Minds, go ahead and look us up. We have a lot of social media presence. It's not just
on Minds. We're just the Libertarian Party of Nebraska, and we get 5 or 6 hits on our YouTube page when I post on Minds. So it's started with 1 or 2. Now we're getting 5 or 6. At this rate, we'll be hopefully coming up to double digits and then triple digits. We're growing.
Always looking forward to that. And for everybody who's just listening to the podcast, we will have a video of this episode up on Facebook. So we'll have it on Facebook and we'll have it on YouTube. So if you want to watch this episode, feel free to get on those channels and check us out. It's always fun to watch these things on video. I think it adds a little bit more to the program. But if you're just listening on a podcast app, that's cool too. Whatever. I don't judge.
I mean, sometimes it's great to have
Zach,
a pod, like the audio, when you're at work and you're just like, I want to listen to something and not have to pay attention. Sometimes when you're working on something on your twin screen desktop like I've got, you want to have a video going, and we satisfy both of those. Go us.
Yeah. I mean, I only ever listen to podcasts. I know there's a lot of podcasts that do video, but I'm always in my truck at work, driving around, listening to podcasts as they go along. But, a lot of people like video, so we aim to please. Well, so, Zach, what are your plans for Halloween this year? You planning on dressing up as anything?
No, like the week after Halloween, we're considering going to Anime Nebrascon, and I'm hoping to have like a dress-up or cosplay for people who know what that is. I'm hoping to have something to go for that, but I'm not really big on Halloween. My fiance's doing a bunch of stuff. I'll probably hide from kids and let her hand out candy.
So I saw this meme going around on Facebook not too long ago that was trying to set a whole bunch of rules on what is and is not tolerable to wear for Halloween. There are a whole bunch of rules. It's like, don't wear anything that has like religious symbolism to it. Oh, don't have any problematic historical figures. Let me see if I can't find this thing.
Yeah,
Pro
tip,
a whole bunch
every
of rules
historical figure is problematic. Like, history
if you
sucks.
want... Oh, here it is. I found it. Let me see. How to not be a jerk this Halloween. No problematic historical figures. Don't glorify violence against women. Cultures are not costumes, so no blackface, no religious garb, no native headdresses, no gypsy costumes. Gender identity is not a costume. Don't dress trans if you're not trans. Sexual identity isn't a costume. Don't dress as a gay figure if you're not gay. So I've got a challenge here.
All of Milo's fanboys are going to be really butthurt about that.
What costume can I wear that will break every single one of these rules? I was thinking of going as Christopher Columbus. I think that might trigger a lot of people. But I did.
It works really well if you go as Christopher Columbus, and you can talk your wife into going as, like, trans Pocahontas.
Transsexual Pocahontas. I'll be gay Christopher Columbus. She'll be transsexual Pocahontas. And let's see. Well, I'll need to wear a hijab that'll cover the religious garb aspect here. Gypsy, I don't know what I'm going to do for Gypsy. I don't know. Violence against women. My wife will go as transsexual Pocahontas with the black eye, and that'll cover all our bases. That'll cover all our bases. You know, it's stuff like this that honestly makes me want to just break these rules for its own sake. I wouldn't.
Facebook posts like this are why Trump is president.
Yeah, it's pretty much what it is. I mean, I'm not going to go through the stupid effort to go as Christopher Columbus for Halloween because I'm not that dedicated to it. But my goodness, it really does make me want to find some kind of costume to trigger all these stupid leftists who are trying to tell everybody what they can and cannot do for Halloween and ruin everybody's good times. It's such an annoying thing. I don't know when this phenomenon started. It seems like fairly recently that the progressive left has been trying to tell everybody what is and is not an appropriate Halloween costume. And every single year, the standard gets higher and higher. And, acceptable costumes that were acceptable last year are no longer acceptable. And less can, be tolerated by these people.
The thing with this dumb ideology is it's not even consistent, because if it was consistent, this is an Irish holiday. And if you want to talk about marginalized groups throughout history, everyone else is behind the Celts, okay? Take a number. Get off of our holiday. If you're not Irish, you don't get to celebrate according to your dumb ideology. Go away.
Yeah, a lot of these holidays that we have are European-centered holidays. They came from Europe. So if we're going to talk about cultural appropriation and be fair and consistent about it, nobody but European descent should celebrate any of these. But, of course, when it comes to progressivism, standards only apply to people like you, white guys. Standards don't apply to me, they apply to you for some odd reason.
Yeah.
They do apply to me because I'm a libertarian.
Your half-ethnic pass or whatever it is that you've got going on there.
No, I'm full Puerto Rican.
You're full? Oh. Why did I think you were half?
I don't know. It's because a lot of Puerto Ricans look white. They look more white than they do, say, Mexican or whatever.
No,
so you'd never
I could have
tell
sworn
that
you would have
brother
told me that at some point, but obviously you didn't, and I'm just old and I forget things. Oh, there's another gray hair.
All right, so what are we talking about? What is all this nonsense about Halloween costumes? I'd like to direct you towards an article written on redbookmag.com titled maybe don't dress your kid up as Moana this Halloween. It's on you to teach your kid not to be racially insensitive. So let me read you a bit from this article, and feel free to stop me if you hear something you want to comment on, Zach.
Well, first off, just before we get started, leftism is a very strict religion. And a lot of these people left their parents are Christians and they wanted nothing to do with that. So they went and made their own religion. Where there is no good, there is only the great Satan. And that's me, the white guy.
Yep, that is whiteness, apparently, is the great enemy of all men. Not whiteness and masculinity.
Yeah. And real
that
masculinity, too. Not this nonsense like, oh, these beta males are the epitome of what masculinity means. No. Not even a little bit. And I'm not suggesting, like, masculinity is this dude that beats the crap out of his wife and, comes home and is like, you're going to wait on me hand and foot and all this. No, that's stupid too. But a man has aggression. A good man learns how to channel that aggression into the proper pursuits. For me, it's, production at work, and I'm sure that's, about where you channel your aggression. For our other buddy, Nathan, it's going to the gym and beating the crap out of people because he practices Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think?
It's Jiu-Jitsu, I'm pretty sure.
It's one of those. So, there's ways to properly focus your masculine aggression, and guys who focus it improperly should definitely be shamed, but masculinity is beautiful, as is femininity, and we need to stop shaming people for being paragons of their gender they were born in. Like, if we're going to accept that, like, a gay person is born a certain way, and that's okay, then we should accept that there are straight people who are born a certain way, and that's okay.
Yeah, not only that, but it's the vast majority of people are born, their gender matches their sex, and they're heterosexual. That's like the vast majority of people on the planet. Not to say there's anything wrong with, being transsexual or being gay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But at the end of the day, that's a very, very small portion of the population. But you brought up a good point when you called leftism religion. And I go a little further to say it's progressivism, or especially social justice. Yeah. That's a religion. It's really replaced conservatism as the new Puritanism for our age. Mm-hmm. It used to be Puritans who would be the ones wanting to ban certain kinds of speech. It used to be Puritans that would try to tell you what you can and cannot wear and control your behavior. That used to be what they do. I mean, if you open up a history book and read back to the people who founded this country, they were very Puritan and they were very strict in controlling your lifestyle. You have the exact opposite today. Well, now it's left-wing politics, specifically progressivism and the social justice crowd and these postmodernists. These are the people who are trying to control our lives. They're the ones trying to tell us what to do. They're the ones who are telling us that it's no longer okay to let your child dress as a Disney princess because their skin color doesn't match. This is the left these days. This is progressives.
And this is only if you're white. Because if you're a little black girl and you want to dress as Elsa, they have no problem with that. And we have no problem with that either.
Yeah, let me read a paragraph from this article. And, it's funny because under the author section, it says, it's written by Red Book editors. It doesn't even have a name to it. It's
no one wants to put their name
editors.
to that.
No, they don't. All right, here's this is the second paragraph from the article. The New York Post recently highlighted an article on raceconscious.org. Just the name of that website makes me cringe.
Imagine being the person who goes to that website. Like,
raceconscience.org. Doesn't it sound kind of like an alt-right website?
Yes.
And this is something that the alt-right would name their website,
Because the alt-right and the social justice left are the same thing. You just have to swap who the good guys are and who the bad guys are.
All right. Anyway, this article revealed that moms are freaking out over the culturally appropriative costume. Needless to say, the post coverage has only amplified the debate around what does and doesn't constitute cultural appropriation. Last year, Disney came under fire for a Maui costume, which depicted the demigod's painted brown skin. The company ultimately pulled the costume in response to the uproar, telling Entertainment Weekly in a statement that the team behind Moana has taken great care to respect the cultures of the Pacific Islands and that inspired the film, and we regret that Maui costume offended some. The Maui question may have been settled, but this year there are plenty of tweets out there asking in the internet if it's okay to dress as Moana for Halloween. Now, they have a link on there, and I clicked on it to look at this Maui costume that they're talking about, and really it's just, if you've seen the movie, Maui is this really large dude who's covered in tattoos. Mm-hmm. So the costume, it just has clear sleeves with, tattooed designs on him, so it'll make the wearer look like he has tattoos. Apparently that's racism for some reason. Apparently it's racism to make yourself look like you have the tattoos of a demigod, because the demigod happens to be a Polynesian. I don't understand this. Do you have any light to shed on that? Because it just sounds so stupid to be upset about something like that.
I mean, this is the kind of article that 3 years ago someone in Gamergate would have written as a joke to make fun of the left. And they've just gone full potato. And children of the internet will get that reference.
Yeah, this is something that I would have expected to see out of The Onion.
Right.
But it's real now. I think The Onion's not going to have, much success going forward if the left keeps going crazy, because how do you satire stuff that's this blatant?
The Onion is now owned by Hillary Clinton supporters, so they wouldn't be punching left anyway.
All right, I want to read this. I want to read a little bit more from this. It goes on. The original article, written by, Sachi Ferris, discusses how her white daughter was torn between dressing as Elsa from Frozen or the character from Moana. Ferris expresses concern that while an Elsa costume might reinforce notions of white privilege, dressing up as Moana is essentially cultural appropriation, defined as the act of reducing someone's culture to stereotypes and thereby belittling it. All right.
Even this woman is like, I can't win. She's acknowledging that her religion will not allow her to do anything fun here.
What I'm confused here about is how is dressing up as Elsa reinforcing white privilege? Somebody explain that to me. I don't understand this. Now all of a sudden, your white kid dressing up as a white character is no longer allowed because that reinforces white privilege. Mm-hmm. What? How did this happen? This is new. Where did this kind of nonsense come from? I don't know what's allowed anymore.
You're not showing any respect for any other cultures. Duh.
I guess so. If I want to jump through some mental gymnastics, like if I want a gold medal in the Victimhood Olympics, then I guess I could take that leap of faith. Oh my goodness! It literally says here that dressing up as Elsa from Frozen reinforces white privilege. Mm-hmm. Makes no sense to me. And
that's
this
because
idea,
you're a guy. That even though that you're not a white guy, you still have male privilege. You pig.
I do have male privilege, and I have internalized racism. That's what I got. That's what they'll tell me.
Yep.
My racism is internalized because I'm not on board with this.
Why do you hate yourself so much?
Nonsense. I don't know. I thought I was pretty cool with myself, but apparently not. You know, you never quite learn how to hate yourself until you turn into a social justice warrior.
And we
despise
should
themselves.
feel sorry for some of these people, because some of them started out on this path like, I'm going to be a good person. And this must be what it means to be a good person. And now they're just in the middle of this whirlpool, drowning in stupidity. And you know, deep down they're like, this is bullcrap. But I can't say anything.
Now, I wanted to talk about this aspect of it, too. It says cultural appropriation is the act of reducing someone's culture to stereotypes and thereby belittling it. Now, I'm just a Puerto Rican from Nebraska, but somebody explained to me how dressing out your little kid dressing up as Moana is reducing Polynesian culture to stereotypes and therefore belittling it.
Your little kid loving a Polynesian character so much that they want to be like them.
It's belittling to Polynesians.
I guess.
Yeah, that's.
And the fucking thing is, like I've met a couple Polynesians, and they're the nicest people. I can't imagine this nonsense speaks for them at all.
Probably. It reminds me a lot about, I remember seeing a video, somebody went to Japan and asked a bunch of Japanese people what they thought about Scarlett Johansson playing a Japanese character in Ghost in the Shell.
And nobody cared?
Remember, what was that?
And nobody cared, I take it?
Exactly. You remember this being a huge deal in the States. People were talking about whitewashing and erasing Asians from our culture, blah, blah, blah. And then they went to Japan and asked a bunch of Japanese people what they thought about this. I'm like, oh, she looks pretty. Oh, she's a good actress. I hope she does well. Oh, I like the idea. Not a single person showed any sort of objection to it. But
Japan
you have a bunch
has real problems that they're dealing with right now, so they don't have to invent some.
All this is a bunch of self-hating American social justice warriors trying to stand up for people who aren't offended and don't think they need to be stood up for. Like, oh, we need to protect the Japanese people from cultural appropriation. Meanwhile, the Japanese people are shrugging their shoulders going,
no,
looks fine
so
to
that's
me.
not even accurate. The Japanese people, like, we're making broad stereotypes here, but it's true in a vast, vast majority of the time. They love sharing their culture. Theirs is a culture that is built on sharing their culture with others. That's why we have anime all over the world. We are flooded with Japanese culture, and it's beautiful. Shokugeki no Soma, third plate.
Take a look at some of the most popular anime shows ever, and you notice something weird is that most of the characters look European.
Oh, yeah. Because they have big eyes. And look, I am not trying to be racist, but Japanese people don't have big eyes. They have that, I forget what it's called, but it's like it's an evolutionary trait that protects their eyes from cold weather. Like, that's why their eyes look the way they do. Because they migrated from northern, like Mongolia,
Siberia.
Yeah, although like that's where they came from, like long time ago. So
yeah, I mean, whatever the case may be, no one has ever accused the Japanese people of cultural appropriation because their anime characters look like white people.
And the thing is, they do appropriate a lot of other cultures, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but a lot of things that are we think of as very Japanese, they took from the Koreans and the Chinese and the Philippines, like those cultures.
And America.
Oh yeah,
now.
But like historically, yeah.
Japan has incorporated a lot of different cultural aspects into their own, and it's a great country. They're great people. It's a great culture. All the more power to them. And they don't need a bunch of idiotic SJWs in the United States standing up for them. And you know what? I don't think Polynesians need a bunch of idiots standing up for them and trying to tell them what is and not offensive to their cultures. And articles like this are not written by the people who are offended. Like Asian people, Polynesian people, by and large, aren't the ones coming out doing these kind of things. They're always self-hating.
These articles are always written by upper middle class white girls who have never struggled.
Almost always.
Okay, I'm going to preface it. Look, no, screw it. These people don't know what struggle is. These authors are inventing enemies because they've never had to face adversity.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot about that black student from Omaha that was at Missouri protesting because of what was that all about? I don't even remember. But yeah, there was
poop swastika.
during those riots at the. Did the poop swastika? Was that really all it was? I seem to remember there being something else that.
That's where it started. That was the poop swastika was ground zero for all that nonsense.
Yeah, I remember there was a student from Omaha who came from a very rich family. Yeah, he happened to be black, and he was down there, and he was talking about oppression, racism, and how he struggles so hard to live in white America, except for the fact that, he's going to a prestigious university. He comes from a rich family. I don't think this guy is exactly the poster boy for oppression. But because of the color of his skin, he automatically is. He's oppressed, and all the white people are oppressors, and we got to take them down. All this good stuff.
When you start dealing with rich people who are talking about oppression, it's just like, look, I get that there are racists in this country, and you probably have heard some not nice things in your life. But again, until you've lived in a roach-infested drug house, dodging repo men, I don't care.
Yeah, I want to read a little bit more from here. All right. The article goes on, to clarify, no one is telling you to ban your child from belting out Moana songs in your living room. For now.
Right.
For now. That's going to be the next. Next is going to be that you can't even watch Moana because it's,
Or you'll have one author saying you can't watch it because it's cultural appropriation, and the other author will tell you that you're racist for not watching another culture's movie because you can't win.
This actually reminds me of a small controversy that went on in the writing world. I wish I remember her name, but there was a writer who made the controversial statement that said, you know what? I'm going to write from the perspective of any culture I want, in any race I want, and so long as I do it well, I'm going to consider that just fine. And there was a load of controversy following this because apparently fiction writers think that you shouldn't write through the point of view of somebody whose race is not your own. Or a man shouldn't write through the point of view of a woman, or vice versa. No, vice versa is fine. It's the man that they don't like. But yeah, it's created a controversy. So applying that logic here, the real racist part was Disney making the film in the first place. Because Disney's not owned by Polynesian people. I'm willing to bet that most of the people working on that movie were white. I mean, they are consulted with Polynesians to get the culture right, but I guarantee you, the majority of people working on that movie were white. Therefore, racism. They're sitting here telling us that they're not going to try to tell you not to sing Moana songs, sing songs from Moana. Now, I think one of the songs for that movie was in a native Polynesian language. So I can very much see them saying, hey, you can't sing that. That's racism. That's cultural appropriation. Can't do that anymore. I mean, I can very easily see that being the next step.
Yeah.
But I got off on a side note there. But there's no better time than when a kid is in their formative years to teach them that it's not okay to mock other people's culture. That's not mocking people's culture. Dressing up as a Disney princess is not mocking somebody's culture. Where these people get this idea is beyond me. It's idiotic. You know, if I see a African American girl dress up as Cinderella, I don't think she's mocking Western culture. I think, oh, she looks pretty in that costume. Good for her. I don't think, oh, she's mocking white people. Because that would be an idiotic assumption to make.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I see, hell, if I see somebody walking down the street with a Guido and Bill Puerto Rican hat on, and I'm not going to assume she's mocking me. Be like, oh, look, cool costume. That's nice. You know? It's not mocking. So to say that it is, it's just absolutely disingenuous. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. But again, I'm getting off on a tangent. Let me find my spot again. All right, moving on. That's the sort of attitude that will ultimately bleed into the way they behave and think as they get older. Do they respect the personhood of those unlike themselves, or is their only concern doing whatever they think is fun? Let me answer that. When it comes to picking a Halloween costume and going out for Halloween, it's about what you think is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable. Apparently, that's not acceptable. Apparently, doing fun things because they are fun is racism and cultural appropriation, and people should not be allowed to do it. This sounds like something straight out of Puritanism, and it's sickening that it's coming out the left these days.
The sucky part of this religion they've got going on is there's no actual way to be saved. In Puritan Christianity, if you do all the right things, you'll go to heaven. In social justice warriorism, the only way you go to heaven is if you're a black, lesbian, trans, disabled female. It's the only ticket. That's you. Yeah, it's kind of a funny point because both believe in original sin. Yep.
But at least in religions like Christianity, you can be saved. You can be forgiven for that. It's just religion. If you are born with original sin, if you are white, if you are male, if you are cisgendered, if you are straight, and nothing you can ever do will save you from that sin. You are damned forever and ever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're born, yeah, you're right. If you're a black, female, transsexual, lesbian, disabled, mentally ill person, then you've hit the oppression jackpot.
And there's no way that you could be all of those things without being mentally, like having some kind of like mental condition. Because that is a laundry list of things to try to keep up with.
But you know, I see this is why you go on places like Tumblr and you see people's profiles.
I don't go on Tumblr.
Oh, I'm gender queer, lesbian. I am a gender queer, lesbian, transsexual. What is it?
Sexuality is I identify as stratosexual.
I identify as an attack helicopter and a Kekistani. Oh, wait a minute.
We can't really be Kekistanis because that's like the Trump kids really defend the Kekistani thing. Like they don't take libertarians kindly.
Those people are just as dumb as anyone else, and it's just a fun troll thing. But whatever the case may be. I don't know. This whole thing just pisses me off. Obviously, I'm a libertarian, so I don't like people telling me what to do in general, and that's just a basic rule of thumb for me. Don't try to tell me how to live my life. And I think that's why I get so mad at these SJWs, because that's all they do. All they do is try to tell you how to live your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's what they do. All right, so let me finish up this article. It closes with this. A Halloween costume is a small, easy way to introduce these issues in a way that a child yet to be fully brain can process. Yet to be fully brain can process. Okay. This
Or
isn't
this
about
person,
putting
apparently.
This isn't about putting a damper on your kids' creativity. Yes, it is.
Yes.
It's about exercising sensitivity towards anyone who doesn't get to choose how the world at large sizes them. All right, so now that we're done with all the SJW bashing, we're done with all that. Let's change gears a little bit and talk about something else.
Yeah.
I want to take us back a few weeks to when we had Matt Maley on the show. He made a very important point that we kind of glossed over and didn't get to talk about all that much.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and what he said was this, that capitalism can do two things. It can raise our standard of living, or it can make the standard of living that we're presently living in cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a point that we didn't elaborate very much at the time, but I think it's a very important point, one that deserves a little bit, to go a little bit more in depth about.
Yep.
See, wealth and poverty are relative things. They're relative to the time and the place you live. A rich man in America, a poor man in America might be a rich man in Uganda. And a rich man in Uganda might be poor here. Take a rich man from back in the Middle Ages, take his living conditions back then and put them in an American city, he'd be considered poor.
Mm-hmm.
And take a poor man's living conditions back to the Middle Ages and he'd be considered a rich man.
Oh, yeah.
So all of this is relative based on time and place. And I think this is a very important thing to understand because there's a lot of talk about fighting poverty, about a war on poverty, trying to eliminate it altogether. But the very nature of what poverty is, how it's defined, and how people think about it, make that an impossible task.
Someone's
You
always
can
gonna be
never
poorer
eliminate
than someone
poverty.
else.
Yeah, exactly. It's always going to be poverty, so long as we define it in relative terms, which is the way that people think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't matter that a poor man in America would be rich by the standards of some other country in some other time. That doesn't matter so much because in comparison to other people that live in this country and this time, he is poor. See what I mean about it being relative?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's very important to contrast how the libertarian thinks of wealth and inequality and poverty and how, say, the progressive might think of these things. Because the progressives put a lot of emphasis on income equality. They put a lot of emphasis on people having relative incomes to each other and relative wealth to each other, whereas libertarians tend to, and I think rightfully so, brush that aside. It's irrational. A libertarian looks at poverty and wealth in absolute terms. It doesn't matter to me that my standard of living is so much lower than that of Bill Gates, for example. It doesn't matter that there is X number of millionaires and billionaires out there making so much more money than me, having so many more assets than me. What matters to me is my real standard of living, my real wealth. Now, it's not amazing in comparison to a lot of these people I mentioned, but I live in a good apartment. I own 2 vehicles. I'm comfortable. I have savings. These are all things that I would consider, these are all things that would be considered immensely wealthy in foreign countries. So you fall into a pit. You fall into a trap when you start thinking in the progressive manner. Because when equality is all that matters, when equality is what really makes the difference to you, then you'll be willing to accept incredible poverty so long as people are relatively equal to one another. The fight for egalitarianism oftentimes leads you down a road that actually makes the average lives of people worse. Now, it may make them more equal. More likely than not, that's not going to be the case. Because what you get a lot of time when you strive for equality is you get rich politicians and poor people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you end up in. You end up getting like in Venezuela, what was the Hugo Chavez's daughter is like a multi-millionaire there. Why? Not because of anything she's produced, not because of any amazing innovations she's come up with. She hasn't invented anything. She hasn't created anything. She didn't create the wealth that she enjoys. She has that wealth because her father was the head of the country. See what I mean? Rich politicians are the ones that benefit from these egalitarian schemes. So they don't even really result in egalitarianism. They do result in the plundering of productive individuals to redistribute throughout the entirety of society. Now, a lot of progressives are okay with this because you get to loot the rich industrial class and redistribute their property and their wealth to others. They don't mind so much that the politicians benefit from this. They don't mind that you end up with, like even the paragon of progressive values, Bernie Sanders owns 3 homes. How many refugees do you think he houses in there? Now, how much money does he give to charity? I mean, you look at his taxes, it's next to nothing. And half of what he does give, he gives to presidential campaigns such as Barack Obama's. Mm-hmm. So really, what we end up having here is rich politicians, such as Bernie Sanders, such as Hugo Chavez, poor people. I think it's very important that we look at wealth and poverty in absolute terms and not be so hyper-focused on equality. You know, I'd rather my standard of living progressively go up at a slow pace than to see the standards of living of rich people plummet in order to prop up some social program that might benefit me in some small way. You know, forget for a moment that we believe that stealing people's property is inherently wrong and we shouldn't do it. I do not consider large amounts of wealth to be a bad thing, so long as that wealth is obtained through ethical means, through the production of goods and services that people are willing to part with their money in order to obtain. That's the ethical capitalistic way of obtaining wealth. And if that's the way someone obtain wealth, then good on them. They should be allowed to keep it. They should be allowed to invest it. What they do with that money is none of my business. Now, I want to go on a little bit of a mental exercise. Let's consider Karl Marx. His Communist Manifesto was published in 1847. Now, let's consider if we had a time machine and were able to transport Karl Marx from his day in 1847 to the present year, 2017. What might he think? What might he think of this society that we built? What would he think of the conditions of the poor living here as opposed to the conditions of the poor living back in his day? Would he be appalled by the situation of the poor today? Would he come here and immediately think, this must be the result of paradise? This must be the result of my ideas coming to fruition. And how surprised might he be to learn that America, for all its flaws, is still predominantly a capitalistic system, and that we have resided over the greatest increase in the standard of living for the average human being in the history of mankind since the Industrial Revolution. Might he be surprised? I think he would be. I think if he would transport a poor person from back in those days to the modern day and show him just the wealth of resources even the poor among us have access to, he'd be surprised and they'd be delighted to see that. See, if we were to judge wealth and poverty by the standards they had back then, we've already eliminated poverty. But this is what I mean by it being relative. It's a moving goalpost. So long as we're thinking of wealth and poverty in the way we should be, in real terms, then by that standard, real poverty in the United States is minuscule. There's very little of it. But if you define it solely in terms of equality, you will never eliminate it, and you will never be satisfied. And you may have some things to add here, since you grew up poorer than I did. You grew up in a harsher situation than I did, so you might have something to add to that.
Well, I'm going to play the other side a little bit here, because we know that there are evolutionary psychological factors at play when it comes to income inequality. So if you want to hear someone who actually knows something about this kind of stuff, there's a Joe Rogan podcast, and here I go plugging Joe Rogan again. He has Jordan Peterson and Brett Weinstein. No relation to Harvey. Their names are spelled differently, I think. And they're sitting there talking about income inequality and things like that. And everyone in that conversation agreed, so this isn't just like a lefty principle, that there is a certain level of income inequality that humans can tolerate before our evolutionary psychology starts to kick in and drives us to measures that violate our principles. So we should acknowledge that too much income inequality on some level is a bad thing.
Well,
but
if I can interject here, I remember they made that point, and it's not so much, it's the inequality that really, they said, drives that, and it's not real poverty.
Right,
so
right.
you can live in a country that's really rich, and it's really more of an envy thing than anything else. Mm-hmm. You could be living a nice lifestyle, but these other people living way, way better than you, doesn't matter how really good your life is, it's an envy thing. Yeah. A lot of people are very envious of other people.
Right. So the way that we should approach this conversation isn't that we are necessarily great with the idea of income inequality. It's that capitalism bridges that gap better than socialism. Socialism creates much worse income inequality. Capitalism creates varying degrees of wealth. People in capitalism are wealthier. So we need to be careful about the way we make our points, and I'm not saying you, I'm just like, in general, we need to be careful about how we make our points, because we have to acknowledge, and we get into this a lot, where we tell people, you should think logically, feelings don't matter, blah, blah, blah. Well, they do. That's why when we talk about reaching voters, they say winning hearts and minds, because if you're not winning the heart, you're not winning the mind. We need to stop ignoring that this is the human condition, and stop pretending like we're above it, because we're not. The most logical people use logic 10% of the time, maybe. We need to be better about our messaging and showing that income inequality is a result of government interference in the market, and wealth is a result of capitalism.
Well, I wouldn't say the two are mutually exclusive. I mean, wealth definitely is a result of capitalism, but even in a completely free market, you're still going to have wealth inequality.
Yeah,
I mean,
but it's not going to be the huge gap.
Oh, no, I mean, a lot of what the wealth inequality we complain about now is derived from government programs.
Yep.
I mean, when the 2008 housing market bubble burst, who was it that got bailouts? It was banks. It was the rich. It was the powerful. And everybody that didn't have local connections kind of left out in the cold. That had a huge impact on income equality. Because when everybody's suffering, but it's only a select few who are getting the bailout, that's going to create an inequality there. So you're right. You're right. A lot of this is government, but we also shouldn't think that in a free market there wouldn't be income inequality. because we all like to talk about how all humans are equal. And in a sense, we are. We all have the equal rights to life, liberty, and property. We are equal in that regard. But in a real sense, we aren't all equal. Some of us are smarter than others. Some of us are stronger than others. Some of us have a better work ethic. Some of us are just more willing to sacrifice in order to gain. And some of us have different values than others. Somebody who values, work and wealth more than leisure is most likely going to make more money. So in a completely free market, our actions are driven by our own individual values. And that alone, regardless of the differences in our intelligence, in our physical strength, in our drive, just the different values we have, will lead us to take different actions, which will naturally result in inequality of wealth. And that's a natural result of a free market, and that's not a bad thing. Leaving people up to their own devices to pursue their own values, to accomplish their values to the best of their abilities, that's a great thing, and that should be encouraged. But we need to acknowledge it will result in inequality.
Yep.
And,
I think I'm a really good example of that. Because I have the intelligence and skills that if I really wanted to push myself and kind of chase the dream, I could make, upper six figures. I have those skills. I don't have that work ethic. I would rather make enough to pay my bills, have a little bit left over for some fun, but have the time to come home, spend it with my family, and, as Matt said, I can work less to maintain a standard of living that is comfortable for me. That's more important to me. I have made that economic choice.
Yeah, and there's really, when it comes to like Austrian economics, I mean, I'm not going to go into anything like that, but when Austrian economics believes that humans act in accordance to their values, that they rank the things that they want the most and act upon what they value most highly. And some people value leisure more than they value wealth, and that is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And I think Tom would make this point. If you consider two college students, one wastes all his time going to parties and having a lot of leisure time, but doesn't hit the books and doesn't make the grades, and as a result makes a much, much lower income. Whereas another individual sacrifices all that leisure. He doesn't go to parties. He doesn't do extracurricular. He stays in his dorm all day. He studies. He goes to the library. He works his butt off. He gets straight A's and gets a much, much higher income. Now, looking at it from a distance, when you don't know the situations of both these individuals, it might appear, oh, it's unfair. This guy makes all this money and this guy makes nothing. But you forget that they sacrifice different things in pursuit of different values. One person sacrificed the opportunity for a higher income in order to enjoy more leisure. Another person sacrificed that leisure in order to achieve a higher income. And the thing about it is you can't tax a person's leisure and redistribute it. There's no reason why that person who made the sacrifice in leisure time should be punished and have his rewards taken away from him in order to reward the person who valued leisure more. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I mean, both may have, in their own minds and according to their own values, benefited from the choices that they made. But one is more readily apparent than the other. All right, well, now that we're done with that, let's get into events. And there's a handful coming up.
Yep, actually busy.
First one coming up is this coming Saturday, October 28th. This is a volunteer event for Senator Laura Epke. Now, we don't want to blast out all the information on this stuff, so if you want to get involved in helping her out in her campaign, we pointed this out before, but it stands repeating. The best way to volunteer for Senator Epke is to go to lauraepke.com and click on the volunteer tab in the upper right-hand corner, put in your information, and you will get all the information you need on Senator Epke's reelection campaign.
And I can't guarantee this will go out in time for someone to hear this and get involved, which is why you should be on those email lists so that you can not have to have me try to hurry the edits on here. So get on that.
And it'll let you know about all upcoming events. We're here to reiterate everything coming up, but if you want up to the minute information on how to help Senator Epke's reelection, that's the best way to do it. We also have the First Wednesday for Liberty. That's the Lancaster County Libertarian Party monthly meeting. It's on November 1st at 7 p.m. at the Granite City Food and Brewery. Now, for anybody that lives in Lincoln, Lancaster County has a great county party. They have great leadership. So if you're in Lancaster County, I highly recommend stopping by and meeting some of those folks, because those people are doing an amazing job growing their party out in Lincoln. Excuse you.
Yeah. Then we have the Douglas County Libertarian Party is having their meeting on the 1st, which is a Wednesday. You can go join them and try to drink away your sugar coma from the night before. And it'll, let's see, they have... No, this isn't the one that's at the bar. This is the one that's at the library that's across from the bar. So it's at the Milton Abrams Library. That's on, like, what street is that on, dude? Is that 90th?
That's off the 4th Street exits, if you're on I-80.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're going northbound, it's the 4th Street exit.
If you go to their page, you can click on the link to the location, and it'll map it for you. So go check them out.
Speaking of Douglas County, we also have the First Tuesday for Liberty. Now, this is a general Libertarian Party of Nebraska meet and greet. And this one is at the Library Pub right across the street from where the Douglas County Libertarian Party is going to be meeting. Now, this is an informal meeting. It's just a get-together where a bunch of libertarians, they hang out, have a couple drinks, eat some popcorn, and talk liberty. It's always a good time. So if you live in the Omaha area and you want to meet some fellow libertarians, come on out. We'd be happy to have you. We had a few new faces last month, which was really cool. I'm hoping to see more again this month.
Yep. It was a lot of fun. Last month was the first time I've gone. It was really interesting. I guess I kind of have to start going to these more often with my new role, which we haven't talked about yet. Maybe I should... Yeah, let's take a moment for that. So, I am stepping up, I guess, from social media chair to public relations director in the Libertarian Party of Nebraska, which doesn't really change a whole lot because I basically was doing all of this stuff anyway. But now I get to vote on the evil council, so that's cool.
The evil council that's going to take over the world and leave everybody alone.
Very evil.
So evil.
So now let's take a minute here, because I want to talk about this other thing that I'm involved in that's really cool. And we have some big announcements coming up for it, and I can't wait to tell everyone. But I can't yet, because if we let the cat out of the bag, someone might get cold feet. So the Unconvention, the Roads to Freedom Unconvention, is going to be May 25th through the 27th in La Vista, Nebraska. It's at the, I just lost the webpage where I had the hotel.
It's that convention center right off of Harrison and Giles Street.
Yeah.
Right by where the Costco is.
Mm-hmm. So what we have so far, we do have a band lined up, which is a steampunk band from Seattle called Abney Park, which I've never heard of, but steampunk sounds wonderful.
Steampunk?
Yeah.
Isn't that a genre for books and movies and not music?
So I assume that steampunk is kind of a gothic punk fusion. And it says that they used to be a So the unconvention, we're trying to have like a debate for the chair and the vice chair of the Libertarian Party, because this is about a month or so before the national convention. We have some big speakers that we're trying to get lined up, and we have kind of some soft verbals from some big time speakers. So right now is early bird pricing. I'm not even sure if the tickets are for sale yet, because they're still working out. We had to go back and start asking for more rooms because of the lineup that we're putting together is going to do better than we thought it would. So we've got a lot of people.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. This is arguably going to be the second biggest Liberty convention, and it's not libertarian, it's Liberty. We're trying to get some liberty-minded Republicans and Democrats and independents, because this is about growing liberty. It's not necessarily about growing the Libertarian Party. Now, a lot of us feel like the Libertarian Party is where the liberty movement is at, but not everyone feels that way, and to each their own. But go to omahaunconvention.com and register and check back, because we're going to have some speakers coming up soon and more entertainment. I'm really trying to get Dave Smith from Part of the Problem, because I think it would be great to have him do a comedy set. Oh, that would be awesome.
Dude, that'd be great. I love freaking Dave Smith.
So I think if we get the guy that we're about to lock in, it makes it a lot easier to get all the other people that we want, because, well, you'll find out soon.
It looks like tickets are on sale, because I'm on the website right now and I'm seeing different pricing for different tickets right here.
So I don't. Yeah, okay, they did get it figured out. Sweet. So, I am in charge of publicity for this event, and I'm not always completely up to date on what people are doing, because this website is being launched this week, so things are being updated daily. So this is the first time I've been on the website today, so it's great to see that this stuff is going up really well. Yeah, companion tickets. So the adult banquet.
It's got a
banquet.
got a countdown on it. That's pretty cool.
The adult banquet is what you want, because when we get the big speaker, that's where he's going to speak, because it's going to be it's going to be awesome. Look, just sign up for this. I promise you it's worth it. It'll make all your dreams come true.
Well, I wouldn't promise that, but it will definitely be a good time, at the very least.
Look, you can't oversell this stuff.
No, you can't.
Hey, you, quiet. All right,
well, that's all I have. Is there anything else about the unconvention you'd like to plug before we call it a night?
Nope, that's it.
All right, everybody, that's all we've got for today. Thank you for listening to another exciting episode of the Guardians of Liberty podcast. I am Nathan Parada, along with Zach Taylor. You all have a good night.
Have a great weekend, everybody.